Thanks so much for coming out. It's is this the first day of spring?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I was at an AARP meeting this morning at Spring Creek Church, and there was a lady there who had been a florist her whole life. I forget her name. You maybe probably know her. And she had a whole bunch of flowers and showed how to do, flower decorating or whatever it's called, and it was wonderful. And people were all dressed up in all these colors, and it's spring. My God, it's a miracle. So thanks for coming out. My name is Ed Uravid. I grew up in Hershey on Chocolate Avenue with my mom and my grandparents, Italian family. My grandparents worked at the chocolate factory their whole life. I worked there one summer, and it motivated me to go to college and do well because it was the hardest job I ever had, although it paid pretty well way back when. And I recently retired, so I'm throwing myself into a variety of volunteer activities, although I've been involved in this volunteer activity for a while, in that being thinking about and working towards improving the future of Hershey. And I teach part-time at Harrisburg University now. I'm the head of the environmental group, local environmental group, along with Sandy Ballard. I'm on the board of the Moeller Center, and I'm chairperson of the new Downtown Hershey Association. And it's a private, nonprofit group made up of people from all over the township, from every corner of Hershey, representing all kinds of different groups. We have all the entities involved, the Hershey Trust, the Hershey Entertainment Resorts, the Hershey Company, the Medical Center, the Hershey Foundation. We have people like me, sort of unaffiliated, resident, involved in the community. We have several supervisors from the Township Board of Supervisors. We have people from churches, nonprofits, all kinds of people from everywhere. So it's a really representative group of people, and it's a new group. It was started by Justin Engel before he even ran for supervisor. He started up this group, asked me to get involved, and all of us are very excited to be able to reach out to everyone in the community, all 25,000 people, to involve you in thinking about the future of the downtown. So let's think about that for a second. Look at this quote. It says, "Where is downtown Hershey? There is an emerging concern that the quality and character of Chocolate Avenue is deteriorating, and that a concerted effort to shape it and direct its future should be undertaken." That was a quote from the 1991 Dairy Township Comprehensive Plan. And that's a result of meetings and surveys and other outreach that people did back then, and it was determined that the downtown could use a little bit of help. Here's another quote. "The number one issue facing the township is redeveloping, revitalizing the downtown." That came out of a community survey that we conducted, we being a group of people, another large volunteer group of people led by Sandy Ballard as a supervisor. As we started to try to update this 20-year-old comprehensive plan, we did a community survey. We did almost 20 listening sessions, most of which I facilitated. One was here, this is 3 years ago, and this is sort of old news. But what we learned is that the number one thing that people care about in Dairy Township is the downtown, regardless of where they live. Guess what the number two issue is? Traffic. Traffic. Matter of fact, it was like number 2 and number 4. It was like event traffic and then traffic. Yeah. So we have data to show that show what we already know, that people really, really care about the downtown. It's the heart of our community, and it represents a lot for people, whether they're old-timers and grew up here, and like I did, or are new to the town. It's something that people care about a lot, and we're taking it seriously. So one of the things that motivates us is that we love Hershey. We love it for its wonderful memories of the community center here. What I remember walking there and spending, every day in the summer and enjoying myself there, playing pool, using the pool, playing basketball, doing all kinds of things. The library was there at the time. I was a bookworm, and I spent lots of time in the library. I could not get into trouble as a kid. You know, those are back in the days where, you know, in the summer you would just leave your house in the morning as a, you know, say a 13-year-old and not come back until dinner time. But it was, if you didn't come back at dinner time, you were in big trouble. You know what I mean? You had to come, or else, you know, you'd be scolded. But otherwise, you would, you know, wander around, and I could not get into trouble. You know, one time I was walking on the way to the community center, and I got signed up for a baseball team. You know, things like that. If someone said, "Do you want to be on the team?" I said, "Sure." I'm like, I was on a team. So these are memories that people have that grew up around here about this particular building on the square that's now offices, but we remember it fondly as a part of our childhood for most of us. We remember the Cocoa Inn that was on the square. It was blasted, torn down years ago. We remember the trolleys. My mom remembers taking the trolley, you know, to get around Hershey. Matter of fact, I have pictures that Millie Landis gave to me. I think of Millie as the Hershey's historian. Many of you probably know her. Wonderful lady. She and my mom grew up together. And we have pictures showing the trolley tracks and how they went up and down the Chocolate Avenue and around the corner on Mill Street. Pretty nice time. The original mass transit, as it were. We'll remember the parades. I was in one of these parades as a Boy Scout carrying a flag. I would bet money that were you in a parade, Steve? Some chocolate?
I don't remember. You have to think about it.
You were a Palmyra guy, but you were, you know, pretty close.
We spent a lot of time here at the library.
Yeah, yeah. So we have all these wonderful memories, and people will say, you know, geez, I wish the downtown was more like it used to be. And we understand that. We love Hershey for its legacy. Hardly need to explain to you what that is and what it means to us. And we have a great town. I mean, right now, you know, it's family friendly. There's lots of jobs and services and fun. We have manufacturing. We have recreation. We have not only healthcare, but we have a Penn State educational institution right here at the medical center. What other community has all these kinds of things, including tourism as well? Sort of recession-proof, year-round, diverse economy that we as residents enjoy and other towns envy. So I think, and I would bet money that most, if not all of you think, that Hershey really is the sweetest place on earth. And we're going to make it even better. Change is coming to Chocolate Avenue. There are empty lots, and not just this one next to the post office, and not just the chocolate factory, but there are other lots all around. And the area we're looking at is the area from Mansion Road, if you could picture that, where the sort of where the factory bushes are, there's your cocoa bushes, and then sort of a block away from there, Mansion Road, all the way to Hawkersville Road, and then from the railroad tracks to Caracas Avenue. And we've included Caracas Avenue because those people live right, you know, their backyard is right up against the downtown. They are the ones that have to deal with parking, particularly in the summer. People parking in sort of their space in front of their houses, and traffic issues more than most. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about the quality of life of people that live nearby, and things are going to be happening regardless. You know, this lot is going to get filled up. The factory lot is going to get filled up. And there are a bunch of others. I mean, maybe 5 or 6 I can think off the top of my head that are parking lots or that are along the railroad tracks that could well be developed. And we want to be sure that everyone, all 25,000 people in Dairy Township, have a chance to say, here's what I would like to see in the downtown, so that as we develop a plan going forward, and then implement it, it's something that people can be proud of. It's not just something for tourists. You know, it's something for all of us. We really need to make our downtown safer for walkers and cyclists. There are some things in the works that are going to make it easier to get around on foot downtown, but we can do a lot more, and we will, to make sure that as we're addressing traffic and parking issues, that we also make sure that people can enjoy simply walking around a beautiful downtown and have things to do when they're there. So let's look at this makeover. This is a drawing from South Gettysburg. I don't know if you can see it. There's the South Gettysburg that some planning firm did. And I just want to point out a few things that are nice about this future view of this particular community, just to get you thinking about the kinds of things that are possible. Not these exact things, but these kinds of things. For instance, we have open green areas, and we have that right downtown. Those green areas are staying green. I mean, that's a legal certainty. But they may not just stay plain grass. You know, who knows what could go there? You tell me, right? We have beautiful colored, warm-colored walkways, not just sort of cement slabs, but it looks like a little bit like brick there maybe, that make it sort of fun and attractive to walk around. We have buildings that come right up to the sidewalk, so that when people are walking around these beautiful sidewalks, you know, you can look in and you can see, you know, what's on sale at the shop, or who's eating lunch over there? Is it someone I know? So that it's more like Lititz or even Hummelstown when you walk along, as opposed to walking along the sidewalk and looking next to you and it's a parking lot. That's not very attractive, right? It makes you not even want to walk on the sidewalk. But if you have a neighborhood like this, and here you can see little colorful things. Those are umbrellas over tables. I mean, it makes you feel like, you know, getting up and walking around and enjoying the shade trees, and really just parking along the street and hopping out of your car and running an errand. So we have open green areas, colorful paths, leafy shade trees. And the buildings are more than one story. Now these are like 4 or 5 stories, but you know, a good practice is to have more than one, so that we don't have these like strip mall type buildings along Chocolate Avenue. That we have at least 2 stories, so that people can live above the store, so that there could be, you know, maybe you know, a retail shop on the first floor and, you know, a business on the second floor, or even someone living on the second floor. There's a lot of demand, pent-up demand, from young people, from millennials, and from senior citizens who are downsizing out of their houses in the suburbs. The kids are grown and they're out, and they wouldn't mind living downtown and walking around and going to the theater and doing other things like that, if there were more things to do. Here's another makeover. This is York, part of York. And again, you can, even from far away, you can see how the buildings come right out to the sidewalks. The sidewalks are interesting. You know, it makes me feel like skipping along, you know. There's like, it's kind of colorful. We have trees, and even if the trees aren't shading every step of the way, they give you a calmer, safer feeling, and they also separate traffic visually. And there's a principle called traffic calming, where when there are trees along the street, it makes drivers feel like the road is a little bit narrower and they go a little bit slower. So trees are kind of big for slowing traffic, giving that feel like, you know, without the trees, it's like you're on a highway, right? Zoom, you just zoom right through. But with trees, it's more like you're on a side street, and cars are likely to go a little bit slower, and there's evidence to indicate that's true. And we have like nice crosswalks here. And then in Lancaster, this is a part of Lancaster, I'm not sure where it is. And again, this is a future view, where we have the buildings up against the sidewalk. And then where we don't have a building up against the sidewalk, we have an area for people to gather. We have umbrellas over tables. We have something green here. Again, we have different kinds of materials, not just cement that's unwelcoming and makes you feel like you're standing on the street. And then crosswalks that are also attractive and welcoming, and might even be raised a little bit off the ground, again, to help slow traffic and make pedestrians feel and be safer. So we don't, need to start from scratch. This has been done before in Hershey. Mr. Hershey did it. Mr. Hershey planned a town and built it, and we are grateful for that. Now, 100 years later, we're at a point where we can do some things differently. We could do some things in a better way, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to reinvent a town that was created 100 years ago or even 50 years ago. A nice fella said at a meeting I was at a while ago, I asked him, I said, what would you like Hershey to look like? What would you like the downtown to look like? And he said, 1943. Wouldn't that be nice, right? We're not going to bring it back 1943. We have a different world, but it doesn't mean we can't be inspired by the lessons we learned from Mr. Hershey. The use of the trolleys for mass transportation, the designs, the architectural designs that he employed that we can mimic today. So we want to be inspired by Mr. Hershey's early designs, and we certainly want to respect his legacy. It's so very important. So here's one possibility, just to help you think about the kinds of things I'm talking about here. This is a view of Rite Aid, right, on Chocolate Avenue, and you're going towards the downtown, and this is what it looks like now. Now, this isn't so bad. I mean, a lot of communities would love to have a street that looks like this. I mean, planning firms come in, they go, I can't believe you have a tree lawn, they call it, this wide. What's that, like 6, 8 feet, something like that? That's huge. That's wonderful. That puts us that much farther from the traffic, right? And it's green. Who doesn't like that? But with a little bit of effort and not a lot of cost, here's what it could be. Now we have a more interesting sidewalk. Sort of makes you feel like walking along it, like it's not just something that's part of the street. We have beautiful flowers, which not only are they nice to look at, but they create a separation from the traffic visually. And again, they give this feeling to motorists, people that are driving, the idea that maybe you ought to go just a little bit slower. This isn't like just a bare highway. And we have trees. And even though they're not shade trees necessarily, because they're street trees, because we can't have the leaves going out and touching the cars, right, or the branches going out and touching the cars. They still have that. They still provide some shade. They still provide some beauty. And again, they present this feeling that you have that this is a pleasant place to walk, and a place that if you're driving, you should just be more careful. And they call that streetscape. Here's another example. You know where this is, the Hershey Cocoa Bushes. And again, any other town would love to have this. I mean, off to here is a golf course, a gorgeous golf course. Not that I ever played it, I caddied, a million years ago. We have a creek, we have the bushes, we have this huge tree lawn separating the sidewalk from the street. But you know what? Just looking at that, that's nice, but it's not great. It's not amazing. We want the downtown to be amazing. Because really, who walks there? First of all, there's really nowhere to walk to begin with, but that's going to change because there's going to be developments occurring. But even so, it's like if you were walking here, it would be like you were part of the traffic. You'd have traffic noise, and it's not a place you would stroll, right? But look at this. Again, we have kind of a more interesting pathway that's curved. So it's kind of like a meandering sidewalk. We have, again, trees and plantings that separate the pedestrian from the traffic and the traffic noise and the traffic hazards. One of the things I think about is, when my kids were little, if we walked along here, there's like almost a certainty that one of my kids would dash out into the road. I mean, just, kids, they try to kill each other every day of their life, and parents just have to, You know, it'd be nerve-wracked the whole time. But with something like this, you know, a small child might not even get the thought. They might not even think about it or make it a little bit harder. So it's a little bit more safe. We have lights that are at human level. Now, this was done by our planning firm, Dirk and Edson, back before the other little lights were installed in front of Houlihan's and Hershey Story. They call them bollards, you know, with the little Hershey kisses. So this was done before those went in. So this, he picked just sort of the only small light I think he found. But those lights could be anything. They could be anything you want. But the point is that they're low to the ground. They're at a human dimension. Because right now the lights we have are the Hershey Kiss lights, which are highway lights. There's no doubt about that. Now, they're great. They're not going anywhere. You know, we love them. Everyone does, the Hershey Kiss lights. But they are highway lights. They're not the kind of lights that encourage people to meander down a street. These are the kind of lights that provide kind of that cozy and safe feeling because they're geared towards people, not to traffic. And they can look like anything. You tell us what it's going to look like. I'm going to get to that in a minute. So that's nice. That's a nice difference. You know, that wouldn't even cost that much. You know, in the scheme of things. So we hired this firm, Dirk and Edson. They're from Lidditz, and they help Lidditz become beautiful. How many people have been to Lidditz and seen it? Okay, pretty familiar to you. And they have a team of other firms that are participating. We interviewed people. Sandy was there. Lisa was there on our committee. Who else was with us? We had a very large, we had like 13 people. We had half of our board spending 2 half days interviewing firms from all over the country. And we picked the one that we felt best, and it's a team of firms. Dirk and Edson's the main firm, and their office is in Lidditz. And the person we work with, the planner, Chris Brown, actually comes to Hershey all the time. He has little kids, and this is where he recreates. Right? This is where he goes. They have park, you know, seasonal passes at the park and things like that. So he knows the streets better than I do. You know, so Caracas and such, we can do that. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Never thought of that. So we have professional help because, and we need it because for years, when we started working on this comprehensive plan and we started asking people, what do you want Hershey to look like in the future? Everyone had lots of ideas, and we wrote them all down. There's a webpage where they're all there. You know, we made all our notes public from all the meetings and listening sessions and surveys that we did. But what do you do with that? What do you do with that big, long list of things? And we're not professional planners. We're just like volunteers, right? And we needed help, and we're getting help from this very successful, very creative group of people. And we're glad to have them. Matter of fact, let me just show you, to give you another idea of what's possible. They have I think it's like a 2 or 3 minute video here. I'll have to be on the internet. I'm not on the internet. Oh well.
We have Wi-Fi.
Oh, do you?
Lisa, what's over?
It's a very short video, but it's very nice. Bocce team meeting. They call it a meeting, right? It's, you know, we pay our dues and then, you know.
It's HDTHS 17033.
Okay,
Hershey Dairy Township Historical Society. HDTHS.
Wait, I have to get the thing up here. Where did my cursor go? This is.
It's on the screen behind us.
Oh, is it?
It went off the upper left there.
It's up at the top.
I lose that thing
But
all
I'm
the
pretty sure
time.
it's HDTH. I think I finally have it in my head now.
I have to look at my phone every 5 minutes.
I was going to say, I'd always get it confused backwards, but that should be it. And you should
Okay.
get the extension.
What was it?
HDTHS THS 17033.
Was it HD? Was it uppercase?
Want to try
Yeah,
to read it?
try uppercase, all
Okay.
uppercase lead, and try, if that doesn't work, switch the 17033 with the HDTHS, but it should be, we always get it backwards, and we do struggle sometimes to get connections in the basement.
HGTS and
H-
zip code? Is that
Correct.
it?
Mm-hmm.
Now let's just try one more time.
It's 17033 HDTHS.
Oh, it is backwards.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if you have better luck. Did you look it up, Lisa?
What?
Did you look it up?
Yeah, I have one.
You really think we know by now, but we do get confused.
Okay, I'm gonna try it one more time for lowercase.
Yeah, lowercase, that works.
Oh, it's really thinking. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, it does struggle down.
Never mind. The video's not that good.
We wouldn't have liked it, is that what you said?
No, I think you
Can
would
we
like it.
video
It's,
it? Can we see it when we go home? Just look it up ourselves?
yes, go to Dirk and Edson.
Okay.
Matter of fact, they have a couple, and it's basically it's like a before and after stuff, and there's music and everything. It's really well done. So like people are standing around next to a baseball field, and all of a sudden things like sort of fall out of the sky, and it becomes like gorgeous and lots of things going on. Now, the important thing, and this is the point that is the most difficult for me to make, because a lot of people don't believe it, and that is we want to involve all 25,000 people in Derry Township in this effort. That doesn't mean that everything you want you're going to get. There's a fair amount we don't have control over, because we don't own some of these properties. Some of the big companies do. But the big companies are on our board, and they're listening. You know, I'm going back and telling them this stuff. Sandy's going back and telling them this stuff. And they're listening, but they're going a little bit slower than they would otherwise go to develop some of these properties, because they would rather, you know, have development that makes money and does not make people mad at them, right? They're kind of tired of that. And so, you know, everyone's on board, and this is the opportunity to get together and do things. So here's the most important information for the evening. I don't know if you can see it. At the bottom here it says, come to the Hershey Story on April 10th at 7 p.m. So if you have paper and pencil, or you know, want to put this on your notes on your phone, this is an important event. On April 10th at the Hershey Story at 7 p.m. we're having a community meeting. We expect, you know, probably over 100 people, but who knows how many people we'll get, because there's a lot of interest in this, as there always has been, because it's a big deal to people in town. And what we're going to do is Dirk and Edson is going to facilitate a meeting to gather your views and your preferences about what you want the downtown to look like. And on the main floor, where Mr. Hershey's mural is or picture is, there's going to be several tables set up. So there's going to be no PowerPoint presentations, no speeches. I think I'll probably talk for like 60 seconds and then they'll yank me, right? And then you'll go, if you're there, to one table, and there'll be pictures of things to look at. So one table might be a picture of benches. Like, do you like this kind of bench, or do you like that kind of bench? And you vote on the kind of bench you like. And then you go to this other table, and it says, here are street lights. Do you like this street light, or do you like that street light? And you vote on that. Or here's this kind of sidewalk, or here's this kind of parking garage, or, you know, different. There's a whole list of types of things that would be part of a downtown, and it can look one way or another, and we want you to be able to tell us, here's your preference. They call it a visual survey preference. Yeah, and that's going to be on the first floor. And you can just walk around, you can look at the things, you can talk to the Durkinets and people. There's going to be a bunch of them there, and it's wonderful and very smart. And we're gathering that data from you, right? And then on the lower floor at the same time, or maybe right after, it depends on how many people are there, we're going to have what they call a blue sky exercise, which they did for us briefly when they interviewed for the job, where it's a big downstairs, it's like this, a room like this, and on the one wall there's going to be a sticky board or mat across the wall, and people are going to be asked to, given like a card, and asked to write down things like must-haves, in Hershey, must-eats, must-shops, play, and you write down the kinds of things you like to see and go and stick it on the sticky wall, and then they gather that data. What were some of the things, do you remember? It was the musts. We did it, it was fast. I mean,
Just
it was,
ideas.
yeah, just ideas, blue sky. Doesn't mean you're going to get them all, doesn't mean, but it's going to provide enough information that when we proceed to come up with a plan, that we'll have some confidence that we're headed in the right direction. So this is a big meeting, April 10th, 7 p.m. at the Hershey Story, and we're going to replicate these exercises online. So that if you can't make the meeting, you can go to our webpage, which is downtownhershey.net. Is our webpage. We have everything there. It's very pretty and easy to read. And we have a Facebook page. This is the picture of the Facebook page, which is the Downtown Hershey Association. And now we have, I don't know, over 450 likes, maybe 500 now. I would like to see 5,000 likes. I mean, I got to talk to more people that get on Facebook is what I need to do, and we get some more likes. But there's a whole bunch of posts here. For instance, there's a post about me being here tonight. There's a post about where I was earlier today. There's a post about things that are happening with the fire company, right? The fire company is a major presence on the square. There's things going on there if you're interested in hearing about that. So every time something happens that's interesting or we need your help or feedback on, we put it on the Facebook page. This is probably more up to the minute than the website is, although the website has a page that says your ideas, and it has a little form that you can go on and fill out and say, here's my idea, we ought to have whatever. And it comes to me as an email, it comes directly to me. And then I automatically put every single one on another page that says, here are your ideas that you gave us, something to that effect. And it's just this long list. I mean, it's everything that every idea we've heard from people for the last 3 years is on that list. There's probably, now a lot of people say the same thing, so, but there's still, I don't know, 30, 40 ideas there. It's growing. I have like 3 or 4 people sent me yesterday. I need to put on there. People say, I was just in some town and I really liked it and it had this restaurant and I would love to have that, or they had this kind of shopping, or it looked like this, and or you have a children's museum. I mean, anything you want to share, you can, and you can do it on the website, downtownhershey.net, on the Facebook page, and particularly after the April 10th event, if you can't make that, you can go to the Facebook page, and we'll send you to an online survey where you can look at the pictures and you can do the voting thing and suggest your blue sky ideas, just as you would have if you would have attended the meeting. So again, no reason why we can have thousands and thousands of people participate, and then there's no excuse for us to get it wrong. So the plan is to produce a plan and to do it this year, like by September, let's say. And so we're going to have, already the planning firm has just about completed a long list of stakeholder interviews with a lot of important groups, like the Moeller Center. I'm on the board, and I was part of that interview. Like the fire company, the various Hershey entities, The medical center had some interesting ideas that do with transportation and housing downtown. And you know, this long list of stakeholder interviews, and they're completing that. They're doing this event right at the Hershey Story that I told you about. And then after that, over the next 2 or 3 months, they're going to release sketches or illustrations of some of the ideas they're having about specific things or a specific place. And this is before the overall plan's done, right? Just to sort of keep everyone informed, let everyone know that we didn't go on vacation, you know, we're all working on this stuff. And so you get a feel for the direction we're headed in. And again, you can comment on it. You can comment on the webpage, you can comment it on these specific things on the Facebook page. And then, I'm not sure exactly when, but probably in September, we'll have another big public meeting where we'll have more news to report, maybe a sort of an official plan that we could share at that point. So for the next month or two, we're gathering information from you. Then we're going back to our offices. The planners are in particular, and are going to come up with ideas that we're going to share with you little by little along the way. And then we're going to get everyone back together again to ask, you know, to have you look at our plan and say, and we're going to ask you, is this what you really want? This is what we thought you wanted. How do you like it? You know, or how would you improve it? And then we're going to go and implement it. And one of the firms that is on this team that we hired is a firm that gets money. It's like, you know, grant money, state and federal grants, county money. You mentioned traffic and parking. The transportation bill was just passed in the state government for the first time in years, and there's money there. There's like new money available for things in Hershey, and we need to ask for it. Now the question is, what do we want, right? And you think, well, better traffic. Well, that's, you know, we have to work on that. So we have a plan where everything fits together, everything makes sense, it's walkable, it's quaint, there's things to do for people so that seniors that want to go downtown and walk around have something to do, so that young people can live there and go downtown and have something to do, and it's safe and it's easy to get around. That's what we're after. So, I didn't realize that was the last one. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think? That's my speech.
I have a question.
Yes.
What are the plans for the area that was torn down around where the old factory was?
Don't know.
I mean, you have to take all that into consideration.
Yes. Yes. And again, the person that's in charge of that is on our board. It's a big secret. I mean, just these land development plans usually are, because it's like big money they're preparing to spend. So the good news is that these people are on our board and they're listening, right? And they chose to be on our board. You know, they want to make money. They want to do whatever they want to do. It's their land. But at the same time, they would really like to have people in Hershey like what it is, and patronize the businesses that are likely to be there. So we're going to have some input into that at some point, but it's more like, as our planner comes up with ideas for things, it will help the entities, whoever's in charge of, say, the factory, try to do their plan in a way that'll just fit in with everything else. I mean, that's an ideal outcome. And the fact that the people are at the table with us is a good thing, but I can't tell you what's going to be there or whether it's going to be like wonderful, or, I mean, it's probably going to be nice. But then again, maybe they don't even know, because they're sort of waiting a little bit to hear from all of us. Now's the time to speak up. It's not too late. And the same way with the post office ground. Nothing's done there at all. Same with the firehouse. The firehouse is not a done deal. You may have heard about the project for the fire company to modernize and expand its facility. They gave a presentation to the Board of Supervisors almost a month ago, and the supervisors then decided to provide a 30-day comment period for people in the community like us to comment about that project. $7 million project to expand and improve the fire company. And the reason it's important to, well, it's important to citizens, it's important to all of us, right, as citizens, because it's the fire company. But it's important to the downtown because it's on the square. It's right next to that green area as well. And we had a board meeting last night, Downtown Hershey Association, where we had one of our people on the board who's an expert in this kind of thing break us up into small groups, and we had discussions about how the fire company project might help or hinder downtown revitalization. It's not for us to talk about, you know, if it improves fire safety or how long it will take to get to a fire or anything like that. What do we know about fire safety? But we would like to have something to say about whether the new improved firehouse will encourage people to come downtown and enjoy the downtown more. And that comment period is up on Tuesday, I think, so to speak. So now's the time for you to comment. And again, on our Facebook page, there's a post that says, you know, here's the PowerPoint presentation. Click here to get the PowerPoint presentation that the fire company provided that shows like pictures of what they want to do and how much it costs and things like that. And then here's a thing to click to send your views to the right people at the township. The Derry Township website and the Derry Township government Facebook page also has places for you to be able to see that plan and to comment on it. It's happening now, and it's important for the downtown, and it's not a done deal by any means. And taxpayers are going to be involved in this project going forward one way or another. So I urge you to say your piece along the way. Yes, ma'am.
How or who is funding this development?
Well, the plan we're doing, is that what you mean?
Mm-hmm.
We have received money from several of the Hershey entities. We received a contribution from, well, it's a range of sources, but from Hershey Entertainment Resorts, the Hershey Trust, the Hershey Medical Center, from the Modern Transit Partnership, which is a group that's been trying to get train service from a commuter train line from Lancaster to Carlisle for years. And now they're sort of, they didn't get that, so now they're sort of scaling back to like more local things, and they wanted to be involved, so they sent us a check. We're going to start raising money locally from local businesses and any people that like want to contribute smaller amounts of money. The plan, I have to tell you, the plan costs something like $60,000, which is wonderful. You know, I mean, that's not bad for this kind of work, especially because it's going to have, there's going to be an outcome. I mean, we're going to try to implement the plan. If everything goes the way we want, we're going to have a plan by September or October at the latest, and we're going to start implementing it immediately, which means going to get whatever amount of money we need from like the feds or the state to actually, you know, fix the roads or improve the parking or whatever those things might be.
And the supervisors approved
Yes.
$15,000 toward that plan. Supervisors did.
Thank you. I know I was forgetting something important. So, you know, people are involved, and we have a meeting next week with a couple folks that we're going to ask to help start a more local fundraising effort. But we have enough money now in these, you know, $10,000 clips and $15,000 from the township to pay the firm to get the plan done. And then there's other various administrative expenses that we have along the way. But we're in good shape and moving full speed ahead. Did you have a concern about that, ma'am? Or?
No.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I like the idea along the golf course leading up to the Hershey Cocoa. One problem I have, we live on Dairy Road, come out Mansion, make a right-hand turn, and there's a caravan of New York people. Pull over along the road there to take a picture of that.
Oh, my.
There's no place to, it's a hazard to get
I
around
never
it.
thought about that.
Pardon?
Holy cow.
There should be two places where 2 or 3 cars can pull off and take that picture.
Oh, that is so interesting. That never occurred to me. I'm glad you said that.
We see that quite often. I mean, it's got to be back far enough, but not too far that they don't notice that first.
Yep.
I mean, the background is terrible now. It's a pile of rubble, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of that going on.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
A question.
Yes, sir.
The new intersection in town, what are your thoughts of that?
What rate where Houlihan's is?
No, it was put there to move people through town.
You mean that where they straighten out the road?
Yeah, it's to move people
Yep,
through.
Yep.
And you defeat the purpose. Not that I don't like it.
Yeah.
You're getting people through. They're not
Well, I
even-
think what other people have told me, and I've seen for myself, is what seems to be the case. And again, we've not done traffic studies, so who am I? I'm like you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just another guy. Although you probably this morning at my speech there was a traffic engineer in the audience, and he asked me a question like that. It was a trick question, So I don't want to insult you in case you're an
no problem.
engineer. So, okay.
I used to do this stuff 20 years ago, but not anymore.
What people have reported is that they feel that the traffic is faster because the road's straighter, and that there seems to be more traffic coming from like Campbelltown, from the growth that's occurring in that part of the region, as people go from Campbelltown and other areas around there through Hershey to Harrisburg, let's say, or even to the medical center. The medical center is like 8,000, 9,000 employees. I don't know what the solution is there. Again, our team of consultants has a firm that specializes in transportation. So I'm like you. I'm like waiting. I'm hoping against hope that they're going to come up with some great stuff, because otherwise people like you are going to be saying, yeah, you talk to us, and then nothing happened, right?
Swish, swish, swish.
And I don't even know what it might be. It could, and so you'll be the judge of it down the line. And the other thing that's happening is there's 2 plans underway, right? Not just one. There's this downtown stuff that I just talked to you all about. That's where we got this money from these big companies in the township, a couple other people, to do a plan for the downtown. That's a private volunteer effort, privately funded. But then the township, separately but in a related way, undertook its own project to do 3 things: to finish the comprehensive plan that we started 3 years ago, to address traffic and parking issues, and to update the zoning ordinance. And they hired a firm, and I was on the committee that helped hire that firm along with Sandy. I don't know, were Lisa, were you on that too? Comp plan, yeah. URDC, and the planner fella is actually a guy whose father was a Milton Hershey school boy. And they are doing that, so there's 2 parallel plans. There's a government plan and there's a downtown plan. Now the government plan's for the whole township. The downtown plan's just for the downtown. They both have transportation and parking as part of their scope, and they both have, just to sort of say in plain English, the way I understand it, they both address things like what buildings should look like the zoning. Like the building, remember I showed you the pictures where I said, oh, it would be great if the buildings were right next to the sidewalk and the parking was in the back. Well, that's something that we advocate in our downtown plan, but the township, as part of updating its zoning ordinance, can actually make into law. And I think are likely to do so. And again, that's their plan is on kind of similar schedule to ours. I mean, it's like this year, into maybe a little bit in the next year. So things are happening.
Just like at Rite Aid. That's beautiful with the trees and things. and the parking lot's next to Rite Aid. Try to come out of Rite Aid parking lot at 2:30 and make a left-hand turn.
Yeah.
You'll sit there for a half hour
Yeah.
or more. It's best to go right and around
Well,
the
and the
block.
fact that the parking's even there is is not smart growth. It's not
Yeah.
ideal.
Yeah.
Because if you were walking, like in the picture I showed, if you were like walking down there, it's like, oh, there's a Rite Aid and there's something across the street. And then there's a parking lot before you get to the next thing, a big parking lot. And it's never full. You know, it's like, so, you know, parking, you know, that's a law that's required by law, right, that it be so big,
And so many spaces.
so many spaces, but change the law. We can change the law, and that may very well happen. So these two plans that are, you know, going down the pipe, and you know, we'll keep our fingers crossed. I think it's really going to yield some results. I know that in terms of the zoning, that's moving pretty quickly, and we'll see.
How does all this tie in with what Downtown Hershey is doing with what the Hershey entity with the plant, you know, where the plant's coming down, and how does that all tie together?
Well,
And what's I guess an update on what's happening there?
don't know.
Okay.
That's a short answer. I don't want to
I
mislead
thought maybe you knew.
No, they don't tell me. I mean, it's amazing how much I don't know. You know, people think, oh, Ed, you know, he's the head of the group, right? And it's like, no, you know, there's probably 3 people in this room right now that know more than I do about that. But all I can say is that the people responsible for deciding what goes there at the old factory are on our board. They come to our meetings. I talk to them. Our planners talked to them last week twice, and they are listening and they really would like to have whatever development plans they come up with. They would really like to have people like it.
They're arranging for parking in the back, aren't they? For
I don't
whatever
know.
happens?
I don't know.
That's just, you know, you hear these things and you just wonder if that's true.
I don't know. I mean, I have a guess,
Well, I
but
mean, it's gonna
I hate to
happen.
say it, and then it'll be in the sun, and then I'll get in trouble. You know, I get fired from my volunteer post and have to go to tank run every day
Oh,
and
no.
deliver onions, which I love. Yes, over here.
Yeah, Ed, a couple of years ago, I went to I don't remember who made the presentation, but it was about smarter downtown planning. And one of the questions that came up from the group was, at what point do you decide you've had enough banks, for instance, and the requirements that they have? And that was the response. It was humorous.
Yeah.
But it seemed to me that I don't know what the solution is, but the response was that we are in a free market society, and if the banks look at their business and say, we've got to put another branch right downtown Hershey, they're going to want to try to do it, so there needs to be some other motion, or other force in motion to, I don't want to use the word control, but to make it. What is the solution to that sort of thing?
Well, one of the people at the AARP said today, he said something like, restaurants are the new banks. You know, we have like a ton of restaurants, but there's like, after you eat, then what do you do? Right, when
yeah,
you're
then
downtown.
where you go.
Here's, just speak to the banks in particular, because other people say there's not enough restaurants, there's not enough choice. And there's a new crepe restaurant coming, I don't know if you heard about that. We have crepe that it's going to be next to Philip Arthur's. We have a little video of it on our Facebook page. Very cute. It's a restaurant that a guy did in Harrisburg, and he's bringing it here. But with regard to things like banks, you're right. It's a free market, and the banks can pay for the land and build it. You know, that's their right. But we can have a say about what the buildings look like, right? Because the buildings are going to be there for 50 to 100 years, and they may not always be a bank, like where Chipotle is now. That may not always be a restaurant or a Chipotle restaurant, right? So the buildings. So we really feel strongly that we want to be clear about the kinds of architecture and the way the buildings look, so that regardless of what's inside the building, it could be a bank, it could be a bank and a Chipotle, who cares if it's, looks like it belongs there, if the parking's in the back, if it's has, you know, it's 2 stories or more, if it's welcoming with, you know, windows that you could see through and an awning, that's something we can control. We can't control the free market with the entities or anyone else wants to put in a certain area, but we can control somewhat what things look like and how they're situated on the land and how the parking is affected and things like that. So, you know, if you're thinking about, I'm thinking about the bank across from Chipotle,
Yeah.
right? To me, that's, you know, it's not my preference.
It was a Hardee's.
It's not. It's nicer than the Hardee's.
It
I
was a
guess.
Hardee's.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, actually, there's 2 there, isn't there?
Yeah, the Wells Fargo too.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But again, it's not something that brings people to town. It's not something that you could walk down the sidewalk and think, I'm going to stop in there. You know what I mean? I mean, it's, you may use an ATM or something. So it's not ideal. But on the other hand, if the building was nice, I mean, if the building was, you know, something that Mr. Hershey might recognize if he walked down the street, you know, instead of like a glass and steel kind of thing, then it'd be like, well, it's a bank. Or it's a bank and something else because there's a 2nd floor. Yes, sir.
Well, I think the scary thing is, and what concerns everybody, is what's going to happen with the old factory area. Because whatever
I
goes,
really don't know.
No, but I mean, whatever goes in there, and you just hit the nail on the head.
You're keeping the reporter here, though. He's paying attention.
Well, the type of architecture, the type of structure that goes in there, that is going to influence, again, Chocolate Avenue. Now, we can't go back to like when we were kids, and Chocolate Avenue was Main Street, USA. But if you remember, they were residential homes of a certain size, 2.5-story porches and stuff, and the other community buildings, which are practically all gone. Remember the limestone buildings?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where are they anymore? But you need a vision like he had of the type of architecture. Chipotle impressed me. I was not too, the type of architecture they had in there, it matches. And then look what they did with the Hershey store.
It kind of looks like the press building a little bit, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is a type, if you want to have some type of, and it sort of goes back to that period of what was Hershey like, you know, when it was primarily the chocolate factory. And so you've got to have an idea of what type of architecture, and I agree with, I lived most of my career in Europe, where you have a lot of pedestrian, you know, no traffic areas. And what you showed there is exactly, you know, what they do. The thing is that you got to consider is what's going to happen to 322 or 422, almost getting Chocolate Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is that going to become another main artery? And those of us who lived down there, I grew up on Caracas too. You hated the summer when the tourists came in because they didn't know where they were going, right? And the traffic would back up. But I think you know, what you're trying to do needs to be done, and it needs to you know, have some influence that the overall ambiance of the town, what you want to have, coupled with these other issues like traffic, like, you know, what brings them down there. But if you can influence, like you were saying with the banks, that it has to be of a certain nature. You know, Days Inn, and remember when they said, Days Inn, that's going to be another motel. They did a fairly, you know, a good job on that.
Yeah.
But is the fire hall locked into its location? Because, you know, across from the plaza.
They would say they are.
You know, where the old WITF building.
Yep,
right?
yep.
That's actually a better place for a fire hall. And you can construct those kind of buildings that they're impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And he said back off, and it gives them better access to a main artery.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be, that's what I'm going to suggest for them. But in these type of matters, I think we need to try to, and that's where you guys can play a big role,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Well, and that's where professional help comes in, because we say these things, and like I'm agreeing with you right now with everything you said, and where does that take us? And that's why we have professionals, and the people we talk with, they have like a million ideas. They're like, oh, we could do this, this, and this. I mean, 10 minutes with this guy Chris Brown is just mind blowing to me. He's like, oh yeah, we can do this and move this, and if the building was just like turned a little bit, we could have this other thing happen. And what about like where the factory property, old factory property is? What about across the street? There's giant area of parking with impervious surfaces, which is bad for stormwater drainage, and it's just an ugly parking lot, right? What about that? I think we'll probably have something to say about that, maybe a couple of suggestions, maybe a couple drawings. Here's how it would look, and it would be ideal if, you know, everything else kind of looked like that, you know, like in the same, so we don't have like a glass and steel, you know, 10-story thing over here and a little house-like thing over here, stuff that just doesn't go together. And we can affect the way the buildings look. We absolutely can, through zoning, through, you know, legally, and through our plan. And I would say that as far as you mentioned the road, I would say it's highly likely, and this is just a prediction on my part, I'm not sure, that we're going to have on-street parking on Chocolate Avenue, and we're going to have bike lanes in some fashion. Now, there's ways they've done this in other towns where it really works great. And the potential issue is, does that mean that the traffic's going to be even worse because it's going to be slower? But we'll see. I mean, this is what, we're getting professional help to help us think these through. There's different kind of parking arrangements. With Little I know enough to be dangerous now. There's shared parking. Just to give you one example, and I think this may even already exist, but like where the church is, the Methodist church across the Hershey Story, they have a parking lot, right?
Yeah.
But there's not always people there, right? I mean, there's a couple people there, but
That was the original downtown parking lot, remember? That was the only thing you ever had.
Yeah, because there were houses next to it where the green space is. But, where you have something like a church and then there's a business. Well, when the business is closed and the church's volunteers are coming in, they could share that parking, so you don't need all this parking. Or you can have parking garages in strategic places, maybe behind the old factory, that look gorgeous. I mean, the way they make these parking buildings now is just wonderful. I don't know if you could imagine the one that's on Market Square in Harrisburg. I mean, it looks like it's part of that old church, and it's a parking garage. So, and it doesn't have to be all a parking garage. It could be on the first floor, it could be shops, shops and restaurants, things like that. And then like down below and up above, there's a couple, teach part-time at Harrisburg University, which is a new building, used to be Pomeroy's, if you remember that. Yep. And it's next to Strawberry Square. And they have 2 floors. You go in and it's like this beautiful modern college thing. And then there's 4 layers of parking. Anyone can park there. And then there's like 4 or 5 more stories of college. And there's these big windows, and you look out over the Susquehanna River, and you don't even know there's parking there, So there's ways to address parking issues, and I'm hoping and expecting there's ways to address related traffic issues. And we all know that that's what people want us to fix, and we're all trying really hard. That's why it's in both the township plan and the downtown plan.
What about that project to put like an entertainment center along the railroad tracks? The Sun had an article in there several months back. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Did that die? And that was Hershey, wasn't it? Weren't they?
No.
I don't think so, but what I can say is, first of all, that was my backyard when I grew up. Right? That's where, in the parking lot there is where we played street hockey and things like that. And it was pretty awful. I think it's probably nicer now than it was back then. But that's an area that could be developed all up and down the railroad tracks. I mean, the planner said to me, he said, you could put stuff, maybe not exactly there, but along the railroad tracks, and people would love it because their view would be of the colorful park. The cool roller coasters and all the different colors. I mean, it's like an entertainment view, and even though it's along the railroad tracks. Now, if you're up over the railroad tracks, there'd be less noise probably that would bother you. But that's an area that's been ignored for a long time. And there's the trolley barn is there. Lisa Molloy's very involved with bringing back the trolley. And I think trolley's there. There's a trolley there being renovated in that trolley barn, which I didn't even know was there until like 2 or 3 years ago. And that's where I grew up. It was just an old building, right? And it's
That's
just
actually where the abattoir was.
yeah, yeah. And even behind the abattoir, which is the post office, I mean, there is the lumber yard. There's all kinds of space there that's not, that when we think about the downtown, we really don't think about that space. And that's really up for grabs, excuse me, and up for ideas. And the same with Crackus Avenue. You know, maybe we should have permit parking there. Is anyone here that lives along Crackus? Yeah, I know, okay, you guys. So that's like maybe an idea to throw around. I'm just saying that. No one's really asked for that yet. But again, maybe people don't know what to ask for at this point.
Where's the post office now?
Don't know. A month ago, when the fire company came to the Board of Supervisors to talk about their plan, part of that evening was the post office guy came and talked about moving the post office. So that's definitely moving. The post office wants to keep the retail and the distribution components together, because the retail could be anywhere. I mean, retail is like where you would drop off your packages, kind of like the UPS at where Kmart is UPS there. But the distribution part, where trucks go in and out, that could be anywhere, right? Who cares where that is? But the post office feels strongly that they want those two together, and they're looking for other places in the Hershey area. But there's going to be a Hershey post office. I mean, there's not, for certain. I mean, if there wasn't, it would be like Armageddon or something. It would, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
And just a quickie, when we're talking downtown, how far does downtown? Or just that area you talked about? My concern is, okay, the Masonic Lodge is looking at, I mean, maybe a hotel coming in there to buy it. Are they going to have some kind of aesthetic guidelines so that it doesn't turn out
So
to
that
look
it's
like
not
some other new hotels?
a building
that
without
are-
windows? Oh. The gray spaghetti. I don't know, that's outside our scope.
Yeah, I just, Sandy,
And there's some,
you know?
from what I understand, there's some interesting legal issues there
Yeah,
that are sort of deed restrictions and things like
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah, I don't know any more than.
I mean,
but-
I am really concerned, we're gonna make this part, but if you only go 5 blocks off and then it looks like this golden gray.
well, what I can say about that is that the township, again, is hired a firm to do several things to complete the comprehensive plan. Right now, the comprehensive plan is, I mean, in 1991, it was a big, thick book like this. Any more now, it's like a file on a computer. But the comprehensive plan really affects the way the government behaves and the way the government treats citizens and businesses and people that come forward with land development plans. It creates a context for how things should be done. For instance, the part of the comprehensive plan that we've already completed with Sandy and others, and Lisa, has to do with the stuff that, the least technical stuff, but the most important stuff, like our vision for the future. And there's a chapter called Sense of Place, which is, it goes into some detail about when possible, we should use limestone for our buildings because that's part of our history. We have buildings made of limestone that I can hardly say it as well as has been written down, but it doesn't have the force of law necessarily, but it does impact and gives guidance to the way the government should behave when people come forward and say, I want to build something new. Also, there's the zoning ordinance, which doesn't just apply to downtown. It could apply to the whole township. And in May, I don't know how that's going to work out. I know they are going to apply certain specific new rules for how buildings should look downtown, but zoning also covers everywhere else. So that would be a way that the government can somewhat control the way buildings look.
And
Yeah,
that would
because
be
that
something.
whole corner,
Yeah,
Hawkersville,
That's an important
Governor
corner.
Road has 2 potential lots. I mean, the gas stations there, people need gas stations, I'm okay. But we have those 2 opposite corners that they can either make that whole area, or they can make it look.
Well, that's kind of our
awful.
gateway to Hershey.
Exactly.
You know,
That's really important, I think, that particular.
That's the
corner
first thing you
and
see
how
after
it's
you pass
developed.
the medical center.
Mhm.
Well, and I think along with the updating the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance, there will be more meetings, and as Ed said, you know, to add your comments and to speak up in terms of, it would be something that was discussed at some of those smart growth. We had 3 presentations that Ed and we were involved with. It's similar to something called form-based codes or design standards. So that could be something that people can ask for, you know, and speak up and support.
I mean, obviously, we're working about the downtown of Hershey, but there, as you say, there are other entrances coming into Hershey that I think we really need to.
Well, and there's
kinda
Middletown
take a
Road.
look.
There's Middletown Road. Do we really want Middletown Road to be a series of truck stops? And it doesn't have to be that way. It does not have to be that way. And zoning plays a big role in that because you could say, well, you don't say here's exactly the kind of business we want to have, or exactly the way the building should look, even say along Middletown Road. But you could say we want it to be like a village cluster development here, and we don't want a truck stop there, or that kind of use. So that's now we're broadening out to the township. That's a huge area of the township that is ripe for development, and with the economy coming back is likely to happen. And you know, do we want to have debates over should the sheets be there or not be there? You know, every single time someone comes up with something, or do we just want to settle it and say, no, you know, we updated the law, and everyone feels pretty comfortable that whatever comes there is not going to be god awful. You know, it may not be perfect, but
But if we have certain.
What's the village Chevrolet?
it goes to Ockerville Road.
No, I mean going,
No, it stops at
east.
Mansion.
Yeah, Mansion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's another thing. Where they ever gonna
Palmdale.
put it there?
Yeah, Palmdale.
You know what I mean? Right
Yeah,
across
yeah,
from Joe,
yeah. I know what you're talking
golf
about.
course.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't it be nice if there was sidewalks along there in Palmdale, right? But you know, and there are some, you know, but that is an area that needs some attention indeed, outside the scope of our downtown thing. Yes, ma'am.
I am for the downtown development. I think it sounds great. I think it's wonderful. I'm really positive and hoping. Would it be conceivable at all to like minimize parking downtown, have a mass parking area outside the downtown, and then have shuttles and mock trolleys coming in and out routinely for a minimal cost?
Indeed, that's an excellent idea. A little I understand about the new transportation law is it provides the ability for looping bus service in a community, and some communities are experimenting with that. And actually, as I say that out loud, I'm probably wrong in exactly the way I put it, but there's new ways to look at mass transportation, mass transit, that would fit in nicely with that kind of idea. And when I go to senior citizens groups, that's what they care a lot about. They care a lot about that, right? People movers is fine. You know, that does a good job. But you know, what I've heard is along the lines of what you said. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a bus that just sort of looped around on it? You know, and you know exactly where it's going to be
If the
all day
downtown's
long.
going to have beautiful sidewalks, I'd want to go down and walk.
And it could
through
pick people up from a parking lot or parking garage.
And not have to worry about parking.
Mhm. Yeah.
These shuttles around free. We got the Hershey Lodge doing it. The hotel shuttles them from the park entrance up to the gardens, to the restaurants, with a Hershey Story. I mean, there's different places I can tell our guests, our customers, go here. There's a free pickup point. You know, if you want to get away from the park for a little while, hop on one of the shuttles. Go to the lodge. Go to the hotel. Take a look at the park from up there at the gardens. And it does. The parking garages, you have to pay to get in. They'll provide their own shuttles. It's amazing what parking garages can do for this neighborhood on the outskirts. north, south, east, and west, with big signs. Our guests need signs. They don't know where to go.
I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things on our list there's actually a fancy word for it. Do you know the fancy word, since you brought it up? Oh, you're cheating. I knew you knew the word.
There's many languages.
Wayfinding, they call it. So signs isn't good enough anymore for some reason. I think consultants use that as a way to charge us more. They create new names. But that's on our list, signs. And one of the firms we interviewed that we did not choose actually did the signs for the Milton Hershey homes. And I don't know if you can picture them. They're like maybe this thick, and they're like this high, and they have like a curve like that at the top, and it says what the home's name is. And I mean, they paid someone to design that, and our planner Chris is saying, you need some signs, man. Just the sign that you're in Hershey, even. That would be kind of nice. And again, it should be amazing. It shouldn't be just a sign, on plywood. But signs would help with things like that, how to find the parking before you get into downtown, or how to get on the bus or whatever it is. Right? Is that what you were getting at?
And the zoning is very powerful. That's how you keep everything in order. Adams County had a lot of problems with the chicken hatcheries, all the eggs. They control that with zoning. There's a lot of companies, a lot of different townships that get a good handle on that.
And developers like that. They like that because, for instance, I'm imagining this. This is like I'm imagining, right? I don't know this for sure, but I'm imagining the person who was in charge of the Chipotle development probably wasn't his favorite development in his career, right? Because he had to come back, and people kept changing their minds, and everyone was mad, and it was just the guy was just a developer. He just was trying to put a Chipotle there because that's his job, and things kept changing. So going forward, if we had clear rules of the road for everything, for the way the buildings look, for the way the roads work, and the parking works, people that want to make an investment in Hershey like that. They have more certainty, right? It's less risk for them, and it's more likely that they're going to be able to make some money with less headache of people being mad at them all the time, and they don't even know why sometimes. Yes?
Yeah, we have hope that Hershey will make things, pretty and nice for the downtown. I love having the tunnel. We use it all the time. I'm very disappointed in the way it looks.
Yeah.
That cement wall.
Yeah.
It's very disappointing.
What would you like to see there?
Some kind of stone or...
Well, that gives me a chance to bring up something I haven't brought up yet, which is public art. And that's written about in the sense of place part of the comprehensive plan, public art in general for the township, but particularly for the downtown. And people were already talking about, maybe we should have a statue of Mr. Hershey in that one green area. It used to be Mount Hershey or something, like there. Or just stories, like way to in the planner guide. There's words for this, and I don't know what the words are exactly, but the way I think of it in plain English is that you're walking downtown and you accidentally learn about Hershey, right? And it could be on a mural on that bare cement wall, which there's another one at the other tunnel, right? There's a couple of those.
Right.
There's the bridge, the new bridge. It's just cement.
Right.
I mean, I've had people were angry with me about that. Like it looks, we could do better than that, someone said, right? And that could be, there could be like plates in the thing. And you just walk along and, Mr. Hershey was born on such and or whatever, or something that tells a story, a useful story, most likely, about our history. Or just fun things, just fun public art things. So, and that's a prime area. That and the bridge are two areas where it's just an expansive cement. And it's not even a different color.
May I just say I thought the same thing. I don't care the way that looks. And an idea I had was, how about, I don't know if there's any artifacts left, but maybe some of the conch arms and the rollers from the conches. I don't know if there's any of that. I mean, something, and.
Like a sculpture that attached to it.
Well, some of the actual machinery from the factory was really interesting. I mean, 3 generations of my family worked there, and it was beautiful. I mean, some of it was beautiful. I
Well,
mean,
they have some of it in the
really
office,
unique.
I'm told.
Yeah, I heard that too. I heard there's a conch there maybe, so,
Yeah.
I don't know, that might be something to put on there, so it's, you know, there's sort of
Yeah.
sculpture on it.
It doesn't have to be paint, or it doesn't even have to be bright colors.
How long is that green space gonna stay like that?
For probably forever.
You think?
Yeah. There's a deed restriction that apparently when they tore down those houses and sold the property to whomever at the time, there's a, I barely know what a deed
Cocoa and
restriction
chocolate.
is. Pardon me?
I mean, cocoa and chocolate, that one that's been created.
Yeah, like Mount Hershey and next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's deed restrictions there. The township owns that, and it not only has no plans to change it from being green, but may be legally prevented from doing so, is my limited understanding of that. And people have told me that, like others, you know, supervisors and attorneys, they said, oh, it's going to be green. And then I'll ask them, like, well, explain it to me, and then for this amount of time I understand it, right? So I'm apologizing to you.
Park, you mean like a park or something?
Yes, yes. It's already been assigned to the Department of Parks and Recreation in the township for oversight. Matt Mandia, who's the head of the Department of Parks and Recreation, is on our board. Chuck Emmerich, who's the head of the Department of Community Development and is responsible for all this development, zoning stuff, he's on our board. We were just, you know, with Matt last night, and
That's interesting, because I'm on the Memorial Day Parade Committee with Matt, and one time they said, well, maybe what about moving the War Memorial? And the one that's down there where
Oh, yeah.
it splits.
yeah,
But that belongs to the Italian lodge, that's Italian marble.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they built that because, you know, well, you're Italian.
yeah.
There was always this.
I grew up right next to that.
So when World War II broke out, they wanted to actually, you know, show how patriotic they were. And that was one of the things
Well,
that they.
last time I was at the Italian Club, there was, you know, people sort of see me coming now. They're like, downtown. And there was like an argument between someone, and this is during the bocce game, someone who wanted a statue of Mr. Hershey and someone who wanted a fountain. I'm like, hey, I don't care. I just want it to be useful and green, and people can enjoy it, and it makes sense. And you decide, you know, or they'll come up with something that we hadn't even thought of, and then I'll show it to you, you know, a couple months from now.
And we do have that. We have what, Mr. Hershey in a fountain park.
Well,
we have 5 statues right now.
Yeah.
And what some of the people will say is, on our board, they'll say, you know, there's already like 2 or 3 statues of Mr. Hershey, we really need another one. And I say, I never see those statues, ever. You know, like I don't, you know, like once every 3 or 4 years I'll ride my bike in to see the one at the school. I never see the one in the park. I don't go to the park. You know, I worked at the park when I was a kid.
What is it, the 3rd floor of the department store? In the window at night?
Yeah, we do.
You ever notice that one up there?
Oh yeah, is there one there?
That's the only one I know of.
It's about this big.
Oh, it's about this big, you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
You see it at night when the lights are on, right? They leave the
Are you
light
sure
on
it's not
at
like an NSA camera or something?
No, I
Look
checked.
up at night.
Okay. Any last thoughts or questions? Oh, okay.
We have some tunnels, and that's a nifty idea, but who uses them? No.
Well, they're brand new. They do. They said they were
Yeah,
like,
but
they're brand new. They just did them this year.
but who's using them though?
People that go across to the Hershey buildings.
Well-
It's an educational thing.
It's likely to be used more in the future after these big developments come in, at the chocolate factory and at the post office.
Yeah.
Because people will be going, you know, around those areas more.
Yeah.
And then they're brand new, so people are just starting to learn that they're there. I mean, I just went through it for the first time this winter. I think they just came up in the fall, right? I think I
The
finished.
people that work at the factory, where the factory is left, the offices, they park on this side and go through into the
And walk
offices.
through there.
Yeah, it's used a lot.
Now, I've been in the township police department. I got a tour. Okay, I wasn't everything bad, and I saw the monitor from the cameras from there. And they said, "Oh, there it is," and like, "Oh, okay." And someone was sitting there looking at these monitors. So it's turned on. Yeah.
It's on the Weather Channel too.
On the Mersey.
The tunnel?
No, one of those monitor cameras, it's right there in the square.
Okay. Yeah.
With the legacy and all, this is just a small comment, being an outsider coming into your community. The community center, is there any chance that that can go back to what the legacy wanted?
Probably not. There are, my understanding is, again, it's limited. They don't tell me everything. But there's been people that have asked about that, right? People, just regular citizens, senior citizens are interested in accessing the recreational facilities. The building itself is in pretty good repair and is going to be continue to be maintained indefinitely, is my understanding. But there are some code issues that would be hard to deal with for different kinds of uses. That when the building was built, those codes wouldn't have existed. For instance, there's not sufficient handicap access. There's something to do with the pool, that use. So it's not likely. And I brought up the idea of that. Just last night I was talking to someone where I said at least the area outside, right, where there's that little pool and the fountain and the steps that go up off Chocolate Avenue to that area. You know, why can't that be an area that people are enticed to walk around, and that could be a place where maybe we tell a Hershey story. Because otherwise you just walk by it. It's like a dead space on the street. So I'm thinking outside could be an area that we could maybe do, have some, benches with umbrellas and, maybe a coffee shop there, but probably not anything inside, is my understanding.
Okay, and then
but that's not to say we don't want a community space downtown.
Right.
Muller Senior Center wants to come downtown. They have 100 people a day that uses their services. I'm on that board. I've started discussions with Milton Hershey School and Harris Creek University about having a place for college courses to be offered, especially the old timers. They keep saying we want to bring the junior college back, or that kind of use. But and so there are a couple of ideas that people have had that are neat, and normally you think, well, it could go in the community center, but maybe they can also go somewhere else. Maybe if the fire company doesn't expand at their current location, maybe they have a second location or whatever. Maybe some of that space can be used for community space in some fashion. I have no idea how that would work. I'm just saying these are just trade-offs and thoughts that people are having, so that we don't rule anything out. Well, thank you very much for hanging out with me and letting me talk to you for so long. I appreciate it.